Do you know if this information and past association was part of the record?
I'm not familiar with his personal background.
Do you think that these types of controversial comments and interviews, association with Nazi sympathizers and anti-Semitic comments would be appropriate for inclusion in a given FBI background check?
Ma'am, since his nomination is pending, it's not for me to comment on it. I don't have the BI in front of me.
Director Patel, since 2022, the executive branch has been legally required to operate and maintain a publicly available system to which apportionments are posted. As you know, apportionments are legally required by the Anti-Deficiency Act. They are formal federal budgetary accounting documents that are legally binding on federal agency, and OMB uses them to tell agencies how and when they can spend legally appropriated funds. Beginning in March, this OMB stopped making these documents publicly accessible. You stated in your confirmation hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee that you want to work to get public trust in the FBI back. It would seem to me that transparency and public reporting about where and how the Bureau is spending money would help in earning back public trust. As the leader of our nation's principal federal law enforcement agency, will you commit to making the FBI's account-specific apportionments publicly available?
Absolutely, so long as I have the appropriate request.
The law requires that all the information be posted publicly. Are you committing to do that?
If that's what the law requires, yes. I'm not the appropriations expert, but if that's what the law requires, that's what we'll do.
Do you have a timeline of when that would be possible, and why, since March, has it been taken down?
No, ma'am, but I will get you one.
Okay, so thank you for committing to publicly post what is required by law, the apportionment for the FBI. I wanted to ask about one of the U.S. Attorney nominee Ed Martin. As you know, the FBI conducts background checks on nominees for senior positions in the federal government. Ed Martin has been nominated by the president to serve as U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, one of the top prosecutor positions in the country, and he currently holds that position in an interim role. If it has come to light that Mr. Martin has praised a Nazi sympathizer named Timothy Hale Cuccinelli, who was also pardoned by President Trump after being convicted as a January 6th rioter. Mr. Martin called Hale Cuccinelli, quote, an extraordinary man, an extraordinary leader. He's also falsely claimed that he did not previously know that he was a Nazi sympathizer. Do you think that this is the kind of thing that the FBI should be careful to investigate as part of its background checks on nominees such as Mr. Martin?
Thank you, ma'am. I'm not familiar with Mr. Martin's specific BI investigation, but I can tell you how the BIs are done for everybody at the FBI. We have careers running the entire inspection division and HRD component. That has not changed since I've been in the seat, and every BI has been held to the same standard by them, and either they pass along the information from their investigations that they cultivate, or they don't. We do not tell them what to pass on and what not to investigate.
Do you know if this information and past association was part of the record?
I'm not familiar with his personal background.
Do you think that these types of controversial comments and interviews, association with Nazi sympathizers and anti-Semitic comments would be appropriate for inclusion in a given FBI background check?
Ma'am, since his nomination is pending, it's not for me to comment on it. I don't have the BI in front of me.
But in general, do you think that comments and associations like these should be part of an FBI background investigation report?
That's up to the field agents, ma'am. I can't rewrite that for them. They have a way of doing these investigations that I have not inhibited or changed or altered since I got in the seat.
Will you look into it and make sure that should be included, controversial and very troublesome anti-Semitic comments and associations like that should be part of a background check?
I will.
Thank you. Lastly, as you know, earlier this year, the Justice Department demanded a list of all current and former FBI employees who at any time worked on January 6th investigations. According to the email from the then acting FBI director, the Justice Department will review those employees to, quote, determine whether any additional personnel actions are necessary. Director Patel, do you anticipate firing any additional FBI employees simply because they worked on January 6th related investigations?
Thank you for the question. That email or memo was sent out prior to my arrival at the FBI. We have not addressed that specific email since I've arrived because the matter's in litigation in federal court.
Do you anticipate firing any additional employees that may have worked in relation to the January 6th investigations?
The only way you get fired from the FBI while I'm the director is if you violate the ethical guidelines or break the law.
Okay. Thank you. I yield back.
What Congresswoman Grace Meng did in that exchange wasn't small procedural nitpicking. It was a pointed demand for the basic things that keep democracy functioning: transparency, rigorous vetting, and protection for the people who investigate threats to the republic. Start with the money. Apportionment sounds dry, but they're fundamental. They're the legally binding instructions that tell agencies how and when to spend appropriated funds. The Anti-Deficiency Act and related rules exist so agencies can't simply spend money however they please or hide reprogramming behind closed doors. When those accounting records are publicly posted, citizens, auditors, and Congress can trace whether taxpayer dollars are being used as intended. When those documents mysteriously vanish from public view, it isn't a small clerical glitch. It breaks a basic mechanism of oversight. Meng was right to press. If the FBI wants public trust, it starts by following the law and making clear where the money goes and when. Then she moved to personnel and character, and this is where the stakes become personal. Ed Martin is a nominee for a top prosecutorial role in Washington. The hearing revealed that he had publicly praised a January 6 rioter described in the hearing as a Nazi sympathizer. Meng's question was simple and urgent. Are associations like that being captured and considered in FBI background checks for nominees to powerful law enforcement positions? The answer shouldn't be a shrug. If people who admire or defend extremist actors can ascend to positions that control prosecutions and investigations, that's not a hypothetical worry. It's a real risk to impartial justice and to communities targeted by those extremists. Patel's replies tried to thread two needles. He emphasized that the FBI's background investigation machinery, the career investigative components, still exist, and that he doesn't dictate what goes into a BI. But his hands-off formulation leaves open real questions about completeness and independence. Background investigations typically aggregate a mix of public records, interviews, financial and foreign contacts checks, and field reporting. They are not and should not be a partisan rubber stamp. And when a nominee's past praise for an extremist is publicly known, the public rightly expects it to show up in the record and be evaluated for whether it should disqualify someone from a sensitive role. There's a deeper problem the hearing also hinted at: the climate inside the Justice Department and the FBI right now. Meng referenced an earlier DOJ request for a list of current and former FBI employees who worked on January 6 investigations, with follow-up language about personnel actions. That kind of request, especially if used as a fishing expedition, chills investigators. When line agents fear they can be punished for doing their jobs, morale and independence suffer. Investigations grow timid, whistleblowers are scared off, priorities shift from following the facts to managing optics. Patel said under his leadership, you're only fired for ethical violations or breaking the law. That answer is correct in principle, but it cannot be the only safeguard. The real protections come from institutions: transparent record-keeping, independent inspectors general, clear merit-based personnel rules, and congressional oversight that follows up with subpoenas and audits when answers are incomplete. So what are the concrete implications of what Meng pressed for? First, public apportionments matter because they let watchdogs, Congress, GAO, IGs, journalists, and citizens see whether funds are being frozen, reallocated, or withheld for improper reasons. If apportionments are intentionally obscured, reprogramming or political priorities can be hidden behind accounting. Second, rigorous public vetting of nominees protects the justice system's legitimacy, especially when nominees will decide what cases to bring, how to enforce the law, and how communities are protected. Third, fishing for personnel records tied to politically sensitive investigations risks politicizing the career workforce. The result is less effective law enforcement for everyone. There are reasonable, non-sinister explanations for some of these things: clerical errors, national security redactions, or legal concerns about posting certain documents publicly. But reasonable explanations require timely, documented answers. The problem is not the absence of explanations per se, it's the absence of timely, specific, verifiable explanations. That vacuum breeds distrust, and in the context of law enforcement, distrust has real costs. Fewer witnesses come forward, communities withdraw cooperation, and extremists exploit that loss of legitimacy. If you want to translate this hearing into action as a citizen, here's what matters. Demand the timeline and documentation Meng requested. Ask your representatives whether OMB and DOJ have provided the legally required apportionments and, if not, why. Tell your legislators to press the Inspector General and GAO for audits of any missing records and to insist that background investigations be transparent in scope without compromising legitimate privacy or security protections. Insist on protections for career investigators so that personnel reviews aren't used as leverage to intimidate the workforce. Ultimately, this exchange was about muscle, institutional muscle. Transparency gives oversight the tools it needs. Independent vetting protects the rule of law. Career protections preserve the FBI's ability to do its job without fear. Without those three pieces, promises of accountability are just words. That's why Grace Meng's questions cut to the core. They forced leadership to state commitments on the record and created a public paper trail that Congress can follow up on. If you care about an FBI that is effective and trustworthy, keep watching these hearings, demand the documents, and hold elected officials to their promises to get answers. If this breakdown mattered to you, share the video, leave a comment below about which of these fixes you think is most urgent, and subscribe so you don't miss future deep dives that explain what these hearings actually mean for real people.